bit. I was trying to get some of my color through. It's not quite the color of the signs, but as close as I can get.
Yeah.
I think we're recording.
We are.
All right. Today is, we have Sai and Natasha who are running for Board of Education. They can't see you waving because I'm talking. They're doing this.
Not
So
quite.
just picture Natasha and Sai's face doing this. One hand each. All right. So, this has been a crazy road for the two of you. It's been, Sai, this is like, I don't know, your third, you keep going at it 3 years, Sai, Natasha, 3 or 4. Natasha, this is your second year, and people are getting to know you, and it sounds like your message is sort of really resonating with people. And as always, I'll go with the first question.
Okay.
So what's been sort of connecting, in terms of, I don't mean like in terms of like what people are resonating with from your platforms. What have you been hearing, and also concerns that you've been hearing, right? As you've been going sort of either door to door or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever it is that you guys are doing.
Should I go first? Hello,
sure.
everyone.
Yeah, why not?
So I've done, I think this is my third year, or I don't know, I've lost count now. So majority of the parents or seniors are concerned, I think after pandemic, their biggest concern is let's bring the focus back to academic. And since we've done a big push on proficiency tests and, rankings, everybody is super focused. I think I've heard a lot of seniors started comparing us to how much we spend, which is 62.9 million versus our comparable district, New Providence, is 55 million. And I keep telling them the core difference is we have busing, they don't. And then busing is a concern for a few. So I think somebody said, how much does transportation cost? And I'm like, $2 to $3 million. So I think a lot of people are concerned with our rankings, our decreasing enrollment, and how much we spend.
How about you, Natasha? What have you been hearing?
So I've been hearing somewhat similar. I mean, a little bit more specifically around BTC, the building thinking classrooms, because Aaron is in a BTC classroom, so I've been hearing quite a bit from parents, and there was a little bit of blowback on back to school night. So and as well as academics in general, I have friends who opted out of GL and are sending their kids elsewhere. And it all reflects in our rankings as well, right? Our proficiency, our state proficiency scores, it all translates. And so I think it all comes together. And I think parents also feel that they're not being heard. So, that their concerns are not being heard. So that's kind of what's coming back to me. A lot of the same issues that, frankly, were there last year that haven't been addressed. It's been part, for the course, with the same issues as we've experienced last year.
Sean and Laura, you got anything?
Sure. So I think
you got the memo that this was happening, right?
I mean, I forgot, completely forgot. Yeah, so I think I have to say everything I say is my own opinion and not reflective or representative of any organization or volunteer groups that I work with. I guess my question would be, if you get elected, when you get elected to the board, what do you feel like would be your top 3 primary goals as a board member? So what are the top 3 either changes or things you want to implement, or I don't know, board goals? We did board goals last night, but I guess what
actually a little bit of last night while I was at the meeting, and it was cold as, I don't know, it felt like I was sitting in a freezer. We were starving, and there was coffee and donuts there, and unfortunately we couldn't access them while, there's just 3 of us, at one point.
Is this what we're talking about tonight?
This is her goal. So
It was
stop.
so rude. It was so rude because it really was freezing in
coffee
there,
and
and there
donuts.
was this tempting coffee sitting there on the
Dude, man,
table.
Laura had a question.
Take off.
Like, can we? Nobody gives a shit about the donuts, man.
Yeah, no, but see,
I do.
one of the goal is if you're going to have a working session, I would like for the community.
Is heat one of your goals?
Yeah, that's like base goals is treat respect, right? Like you're going to invite people over. You can't
Oh,
just
respect. Okay, that's good.
for just for select group. That's okay. Joking part.
Wait, so who had access to the donuts?
Just the board members.
Oh,
No, to be honest, I don't think anyone actually got up to get some. I think coffee.
There was one board member that got up to get coffee and donuts.
Okay, I must have turned
I mean, I
away.
saw one on the video.
One
But I
got
won't.
coffee, and then one came later to get donuts.
So one of my top three, the top priority is if I get elected, I want to see more board meetings. I do not like, I've looked at how many number of board meetings we've had in the last 12 to 14 years. And I think for the last 2 years, we've had the least number of board meetings. That's one of my top priorities in terms of opening up communication and engagement is going back to like how the town council does, having regularly scheduled 2 meetings a month, and also some sort of a cadence on when we end our meetings. And if we are not able to go through our agenda, then maybe, we reschedule and have another meeting. Transparency is one of my biggest thing. And I've been saying this for the last 3 years. If any parent writes an email or comes to the board meeting, asks a question similar to Milburn, I think we need to have a page or some sort of a link on our district website that lists all the questions and the answers. And if we are unable to provide them, maybe a reason to list why we can't provide them or we need more time. Also, accountability is big. I want to know how we are managing our capital reserves and the money that's sitting in our general fund account. I will really work towards seeing if we can have a 0% tax increase to the best.
Natasha?
Okay. So, I mean, my motto is education first, right? So there's, kind of 2 areas, right? So at first, I agree with Sai in terms of getting the board in order and getting the committee, cleaned up, having the meetings ahead of calendared so we know what's coming up, really almost implementing kind of like a PM type of, function where you set the agenda, you take excellent minutes, you have action items, you follow up on those action items, right? And you make it as transparent as possible. On the education front, I do want to, start to refocus on driving up our, proficiencies and taking a look across the programs of what's currently being done to understand what's working, what's not working, to see, how we can better allocate resources. And to the resource question, kind of circles back to the budget. I'd like to see how we can clean up the budget process, right? And really go through it with a fine-tooth comb to see where there are pockets of, funds that are not being used as they should be, right? And we all know we need to, reduce our administrative costs, right? And I think we have a lot that we can work with there.
Shauna, you got anything?
I don't. Yeah,
I got you to
it's hard
ask
to
if you
come
don't
up
have
with
any.
questions just because I know where these 2 stand. So it's kind of difficult for me to come up with questions to ask them because I feel like I know very well what they stand for. I guess maybe one thing would be, how would you go about, because there's been a lot of animosity on the board, kind of maybe trying to mend that. Do you see, are there any very specific actions that can be taken that would kind of facilitate more conversation and more openness among like the committees and the various board members? That's kind of a loaded question, sorry.
Well, I think, it really just comes down to respect. And I do think the animosity is in part driven by, the superintendent, right? I think that has created quite a bit of a divide. I think, we could always work back and mend fences. And I think by having, Sai and myself on the board, I think it really force difficult conversations and actual collaboration, because, they're, based on, previous voting patterns, right? There would be kind of like an equal sides, if you will, where, we may think one thing and another group may think another, but now it's not such a one-sided majority. So I think it will really force people to, kind of support their ideas and maybe even make better informed decisions, as opposed to just kind of going with the majority, right? So that's what I'm hopeful for. I'm hoping that, with the change in the makeup of the board, that it really will drive us to be more civil, because we have to, otherwise nothing will get done.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think I want to echo what Natasha said. Respect is key. And for me, I feel like that there's nothing personal here. We're basically rolling up our sleeves to volunteer. And my biggest focus is to build the trust back in the board. The volunteer role, we are basically volunteering to give a big chunk of our personal time and, to put time into this. So trust is earned, not, you can't just demand it. My biggest concern is, as long as both parties, all of us are willing to work together and share the supporting information, instead of saying, hey, you need to trust the committee. We've discussed this in the committee, you need to just believe in us and then vote on this. I think that needs to change. As long as we set our expectations and work professionally, I think anything can be mended. And if our goal is academics and students and, focus is the students, then we can definitely, meet in the middle and come up with a game plan on how to go about it.
I'm not as optimistic as you two. I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like this is very personal. It was personal from day one, and you have, you clearly have board members who are just looking to mock and to ridicule, and it's gone beyond, any serious discussion on policies. I don't know what half of them are doing up there, to be honest with you. But you guys are. That's why you're running for office, and I'm not. So one thing that I caught bits and pieces of the and they put up the wrong meeting, which tells me either there's something about that meeting they don't want the public to have access to, or maybe this is their new thing to stop us from putting clips up.
No, I think it's just, isn't this the first meeting that the new technology coordinator was running?
Yeah, I'm jaded.
I think it was just accident.
Yeah, there was nothing there that was.
I'm just a very jaded person.
It was actually rather boring.
Can I get to my point, man? No. Are you going to do this when you're on the board, Natasha? I'm talking and you're trying to. All right, let me ask my question. So you have the NGSBA. I know you. I don't know. I think you like them, Shauna. I'm not sure, but man, I do.
No.
Those guys,
oh my God, no.
Those guys. I don't know what they think. They're not. They think they're legislators or something. They're trying to redefine the law. They're trying to make things mean what they don't mean. In committees they don't. They're not supposed to talk about things that you ought to redact in committees. That's why executive session exists. But they're using that as a justification to sort of keep these sort of committees in place. And I don't know, the business administrator suddenly thinks he's a board member. Anyway, I didn't get a lot of confidence or faith last night that there were going to be a lot of significant changes. And I guess my main concern really is that there's so much, right before this whole thing started, we had problems with transparency. And now you have a shit ton of stuff piled on top of that. How long is it going to take to roll back to a point where things are normal? And do the two of you have sort of a confidence or optimism that a lot going to be accomplished with the split board in the course of a year or 2 years or 3, 10?
I think we need to stay focused, JP. There's, it's been hard in the last 3 years. There's been lack of communication. There's been stonewalling of parents and community members. And when I got on the board last year, the year in 2021, I did call NJSBA before getting sworn in, and I think Gwen Thornton was our liaison, and she and a couple of others said, like, there is some districts have this history and ours has this history of stonewalling, and we need to work towards, opening it up, having clear communication channels and transparency. So, and I think a lot of people think that whatever NJSBA says is the mantra. They're just an advisory, entity. So,
Right, but they for the interest of the board, right? I mean, they exist for they're a board advocate. They're not a public advocacy group.
and sometimes what we have to do is, I think that everything is written in code, codified. It's the state board of ed, and then we have state statutes. And the biggest thing is, as long as we stay focused. I think the first year we need to look at our budget. As I said, like, a lot of people in the community are concerned about how come New Providence, which is a similar sized district without transportation, us having transportation, how are they able to do it with $55 million, their budget, and stay, like, look at their rankings versus ours. And they have supervisors for subjects who teach 50% of the time, whereas our supervisors don't teach anything. There is no such requirement. So I think me and Natasha, if we win, like, I would like to sit with her and work with the board on what do we want to achieve in year one, like, and come up with a 30, 60, 90-day plan of sorts, I think the first thing to do would be the budget, because we have March and April deadlines. So maybe stay focused on just two things. One is budget and how can we improve BTC. My pet concerns that I'm hearing from a lot is collaborative consultative model for special ed rooms. I'm sorry, guys, I have a alarm. Okay. So the collaborative consultative model, and we do have a line item in our budget for textbooks, and I can personally say from my own experience, it took me almost 6 weeks to get a textbook, but this textbook was a version from 3 years ago for math. I haven't got anything for there is no grammar textbook. 6th grade and 7th grade, apparently our district doesn't have grammar textbooks, and as an immigrant, that's a shock for me, because I feel I didn't go to schools which are like here. We didn't have multi-million-dollar budgets, and most of our teachers, we had big buildings, but we had no power. So we were taught under the trees, but we had textbooks. And by 7th grade, I had mastered two grammar textbooks. I remember the names of them, Hutchinson and Wren and Martin. So it is shocking to me and my husband that my daughter, who's in 7th grade, doesn't have a grammar textbook. So I want to focus on that. So maybe if we just stay focused on budget and streamlining where the money is going, needs to be students in classrooms and textbooks. That's my big thing. But we can come up with what we want to do. And transparency.
Okay. Natasha?
So, yeah, I mean, NJSBA is an advisory body. And listen, being in the meeting yesterday, it felt like it created more Ms. Reese created more questions than answers. Like, she could not be pinned down on providing specific guidance, right? It always went back to what did other goals look like, or what did other plans look like? Well, you don't want to make too many goals, but not too few. You don't want to make them too hard, but you don't want to make them too easy, right? It was like, it was very hard for me to follow exactly what her advice was. And I could see that if, you're sitting on the board and this is the first time you're doing it, hearing advice like this would make the process that much more convoluted. I just thought it was like 2 hours into the meeting after having 2 previous presentations and not having anything on paper, even though there was like a big yellow pad that was there in terms of writing down goals. I guess my expectation into this meeting was that they would actually have some ideas for goals and that we would be discussing them. But it seemed like,
well, Gail had some ideas.
They had some, well, that
they were actually Sai's a year before, and I guess she must have written them down and brought them to the meeting with her.
But having said that, there are, depending on how they come up with the underlying things, the action plans, right? They could be good or they could be poor. So we'll see. But it was still a step in the right direction. right? And it was like the most amicable, discussion that the board has had, in quite a while. So for whatever that's worth, I think that was a positive. Right. And so, we definitely need to focus on a couple of things, the budget being number one, because that is when we're getting our resources, right? And we want to make sure that they're put to the best possible use, right? To things that directly impact kids. I'm also very curious, like I would like in terms of transparency, like, so I've been reading, some things that the other towns do, namely like Madison will hold a public meeting, on a Saturday for the purpose of interviewing for the superintendent, right? Like all of these things, like all of these interviews for key positions could very easily be opened up. There's no need for secrecy unless, there's something else there. So I think, we can focus on the transparency, we could focus on the budget. Again, it'll take a little bit of time to settle in, but I think the folks on the board, given that Sai and I attend almost every meeting, I would say like 99% of the meetings, I think I might have missed one. I think they're pretty much know what they're going to get, when we get on the board. So hopefully the period of transition won't take too long.
And
So yeah.
I think it's either going to be so they could play either the political game and just be completely obstructionist, hoping that they can say, "Oh my God, see what happens when we elect 4 different people," and I don't think they're going to win an election that way. Or they could calm down. Sorry, I'm sorry. I was good up until this point.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think it's exhausting, right? It's
but
like
they don't seem to get tired.
I think they're probably exhausted by it, right? Nobody wants their name like associated with like bad publicity, even if it's within our own small town, right? So I'm hopeful that when we get there, like it just calms down and that people just start acting rationally.
Man, I hope so. I really do. But I there's a part of me that feels like this is just, for some people, it's like their sad focus for their lives. Is this like war? It shouldn't even be a battle. It should, like,
Yeah.
I just don't understand how it got to this point. I really don't. I mean, I do.
yeah, but
I do understand how it got to this point. I don't understand why it's devolved so far and so fast,
I think there is like this inherent hesitancy or reluctance to answer difficult questions, and the branding or putting people who ask tough questions into a certain block.
I just don't think they know the answers of it, and so it's a defense mechanism. So
That's
I don't know the answers to this, so I'm just going to make it about people being angry,
Yeah, but it happens in the corporate world too, JP. And then, like I've worked in different countries, and I have been mocked for my accent, I've been mocked for the way or style, but then as long as you're focused on what you're trying to achieve and deliver, I think it shouldn't deter you. And I have been called oh, why do you need this information? Like, what you need to trust. And then, you need to basically just keep saying calmly, like, yes, I trust you. And just because I trust you doesn't mean that I'm going to blindly believe in what was presented. I do need to look at the supporting information, or I need more information. And I'm not going to rubber stamp something. And if they don't like it, then so be it. But I'm not going to change, or I'm going to meet in the middle as long as the process is transparent. Also, in addition to Madison, I wanted to say New Providence next week is having a superintendent search. They had a very public 2 meetings. They actually interviewed a couple of firms. I think Dr. Myceli is hiring this year. So he announced a year ahead, and they started the superintendent search. So they're going to have 2 sessions for input. They're going to have a community input session on what they would seek in their new superintendent. So we have 2 neighboring districts doing that. Also, coming back to board goals, yesterday while I was sitting there, I did a quick chat GPT question on board goals. And it was quick. And some of the things that chat GPT gives you as board goals is student achievement, school climate and safety. So maybe, this is something that we can suggest next time,
Like have AI run our school.
Yes.
That's kind of messed up. But I mean, it'll actually be,
No,
probably better.
For goals, JP, like chat.
I'm just joking, man.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. All right, I think we're done here. You have like some Diwali thing you're going at some. Yeah, Laura.
So,
Yeah.
I wanted to just bring up something, if we're looking at like the board as a whole picture and kind of, how we got to this place that we're at. And I think before the pandemic and redistricting, the board operated probably somewhat similarly to the way it operates now. So the last night, Natasha, when you spoke, I kind of had one of those moments when you were making a suggestion as part of the board goals to work on, I guess streamlining would be the right word, board committees, because we've heard time and time again that, we're a board of committees. The work is done in committees. However, when you have to go through an Oprah to get these minutes, and you made the point that if you're on finance and I'm not, but I want to know what the finance committee did, I'm getting very unclear minutes as to what's happening. There's not a lot of detailed information. And as a fellow board member, not knowing what's going on, kind of, it was like scary to think about, the minutes that we're reading that we have no idea what's going on, but the board as a whole,
I don't know. I honestly, like for those meeting minutes that, that have been Oprah, there was maybe one that seemed, okay. But this is, I guess like this is what I do as well. When I program manage or project manage something, right? I host meetings and I take minutes because you have people who can't always attend every meeting and you want to give them the best possible information, right? And this whole thing, like, so I'm like trust but verify, right? And you have to, right? Because nobody's perfect and you can't always have blind trust. And just because you're verifying doesn't mean you don't trust somebody, but everyone's human. And, you want to make sure that you are comfortable with the vote. And that's also an NJSBA, kind of thing for the board members, that you have to show up and be prepared to vote. And so you don't want to be, constantly reaching out to committee members, right? And saying like, oh, what did you mean when you said this? Or what is this? What is this? Right? Like if you have, it'll be much more efficient if you have the information in the minutes, and there may be one or two questions that you might need some clarification on, because that's the whole point, right? You can't attend everything. So what comes out of them should be, transparent and should be informative for the rest of the board, right? That's how I'm going to, trust you, right?
See, and honestly, we could be like, other than personnel and some part of the finance stuff with contracts and negotiations, I don't see a reason why these committees work. The committees can't record their meetings or have public, listen in. And I sometimes feel like, a board as a whole, like I think some part of the town council does this, like, whatever they have to discuss, they'll discuss it openly. So, and we know that a committee cannot take any decisions. Committees cannot, you cannot even poll a committee internally and say, hey, are you guys okay with this? But we have seen this year, I think, in terms of subscription busing, I guess Shauna mentioned that in her article, when they decided to cancel subscription busing for MKM and Mountain Park. And when we asked where was this decision taken, it was said it was a finance committee. You can't do that. So we cannot need decisions.
No, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah. So why have committees unless you're looking at curriculum or something? But I feel like open them up. Like what is it that we are doing? We're not discussing state secrets here. We're not CIA or other than personnel, student matters, or contract negotiations. I think everything is, let's be transparent. I think there are districts which basically put every document that has been Oprah'd on their district website. They put meeting minutes, they put when the committees are meeting, what are they working on. I think Florham Park actually has a lot of working sessions before they roll something out. So I think that's what we should be striving for.
All right. So before we go, because go ahead, Shauna, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say one thing that was interesting to me about last night was when the NJSBA representative, Ms. Reese, was talking. she said, the reason for having committees is because if you tried to do everything as a board as a whole, it's like too much for individual members to know everything that's going on. But if you have someone, so Tom was saying, hey, I want to see the documentation for committee recommendations. If he has the time and he wants to go through it, why on earth would you not give it to him?
And how could you vote on something if you don't know it?
Right.
I mean, what a
Because
stupid
you
argument.
trust, you have to trust
You trust
your
the
committees.
Yeah.
Right, and this
Laura,
is
did you have something?
conflicting-
Sorry, go
Sorry, this
Yeah.
was the conflicting thing, right? So, it's too much information. Oh, but you have to be informed. So you can't have it, both ways, right? So I found it very confusing. And as an advisory board, you could still set and structure your goals the way you want to, right? I don't know if the board, if they do understand it or not understand it. This is just like advice and guidance, but they can come up with the goals that they want in the structure that, they want. The templates might be helpful, but I swear there was 2 hours and I don't know if we had like some ideas, right? It was,
Right.
yeah, it was just, a goal could be to streamline the goal setting process.
And also, I realized that previously, I think by the end of January or something, the business administrator would share the budget packet, or that's what it was called. So I think the budget cycle starts sometime in the third quarter or the fourth quarter of the preceding year. So it must have already kicked in. So if the 8 members of the board are responsible, they have the fiduciary responsibility to look through the line items and vote on them. I think they should be given like an initial version, like version 1.4 or version 2.3. This is what we're working on. They all got a budget packet. They all got to look at it instead of saying only the finance and facility, the privy, the VIP or the people who are on that committee have eyes on it. And we won't share it with the rest of the board. But then you want their vote. You want them to deliberate. You want them to do. And the public expects the deliberation because this is not our money. This is the money that belongs to the community. So I think taking a leaf from previous years, like having more board meetings, going back to this budget process where the entire board got a initial version by end of January, and then discussing this openly is the way to go, in my opinion.
Laura, did you have something you wanted to say or ask?
No.
No. All right. So
Where can we find Sai and Natasha on the ballot?
wait,
Where
before
are
we go there, hold on. I have a real world scenario that I want them to make a decision on.
Oh,
That-
boy.
All right. So let's imagine you're board members, right? And all of a sudden something goes now. This is that you get video. This is kind of the scenario at school, okay? And then I want to know your how you would handle this.
Wait, can we all answer?
No. This is for the.
Oh God. Oh my God. What's happening?
I
All
can-
right, children, welcome back to class. I'm your new teacher, Detective Harris, and this is our homeroom teacher's assistant, Officer Johnson. Let's start the day off with some math. Does anyone understand math? Who would like to lead the class with some math? I don't know if I can do this, Mitch. I fucking hate kids. I can't be a teacher.
It's all we got, sir. Let me try.
Okay. So this is like the first sequence of a very tense situation in a classroom. Hello? Are you guys are you
I
going to laugh
actually
at
think
children while you're on the
There's only
board?
one answer here, and a board member is not to be involved in the day-to-day operations of the school, but they are there for oversight and accountability.
All right, come on. Let's settle. You're gonna finger paint a marsupial of your choice, or a fun thing you did over the summer.
You can't make us stay here! This is a violation of our freedom! Who's with me, guys?
Now listen, we're gonna start finger painting right now!
Oh my god, I forgot how much it sucks to be around everybody! I think I'm gonna be sick all over class!
Okay, at this point do you get involved?
JP, I don't know what we're watching here.
Oh,
What one is
I mean, I know it's South Park, right?
mhm.
But
This
I'm
is
not
one
sure
student throwing up on another student.
Okay. Then you might want to take the student to the nurse if they're not feeling good.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry.
Wow.
This is not a good hypothetical for me.
Yeah, you guys are ill prepared.
I think you call for recess, man. Like, get them fresh air.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, just get.
Wow.
I would want to know, like, actually, I
Kind
would.
of disappointed.
Yeah, see, I'm curious, like, how come only middle school doesn't have recess? Like, they have recess in elementary school, and they have like a huge break in at Governor Livingston. So what the middle schoolers do, like, they don't get any recess. They don't get any.
Yeah, I don't know if that has anything to do with what I just showed you.
Yeah, but I think that scenario in South Park won't happen if they had recess, man.
Maybe. Anyway, this was yet another informative BHCW episode. Any last words, guys?
Oh yeah, please. I think there's very low enthusiasm. I've looked at the numbers from the county. Please go ahead and vote. How many of you here have voted? Show of hands, guys.
I'm going tomorrow. I'm going tomorrow. You can't vote. You're not 18.
Oh, you can. I'll show you how.
Great.
So please go out and vote.
I'll drop you off later.
Let them
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah, and I would say vote and come to the board meetings, right? It really
Yes.
is helpful to have some support. And I think part of the problem was that people, maybe they got just so disenfranchised that they don't think anything can change. But, it is really helpful, and change does happen when people show up.
Yep.
It really does.
Which is part of the reason why they stopped that whole. I know that's what you're big on, that whole Zoom thing. Like all of a sudden, public participation exploded, and then that just got cut off.
See, and I want the board meetings back at the middle school. If you're not going to turn on Zoom, and it's been like a year and a half to almost close to 2 years, the whole reason we moved to GL was, we're going to have Zoom, and we bought all this equipment worth, I don't know, $10,000, $20,000. Why not just bring it back to CMS where people can find it more easier to come? It's more centrally located.
Yep.
And where they have
Not
heat,
cold.
and where you're not going to freeze your ass off.
Yes, definitely not as cold.
All right. Well, please, both Natasha and Sai are running for 2 seats, so you are able and encouraged to vote for both. Please make the effort to get to the polls. Polls are open through Saturday, I think, right?
Through Sunday until 6.
Through Sunday until 6, and then again on Tuesday.
Yeah,
All right,
so
so-
it's 8 to 6 on Sunday, 8 to 10 up until then.
That's right. All right. Well, this was fun. I'll see you guys later. Okay.
Yeah.
Say
Good night,
bye.
everyone.